First, until a decade ago, air travel within India was still seen as something of a luxury. But the number of people flying now is really taking off. Between April and June, more than 20 million people flew domestically within India. That's up 19% from the same time a year ago. India is the 9th largest aviation market in the world by passenger numbers. And it aims to be the 3rd biggest by 2020. But is that really possible? Well, I've been taking a look from Delhi. Lining up in the hot sun for hours, these passengers clamour for a seat to get to their hometown. Trains are India's lifeblood. Some 23 million people use the country's railways every day. People like 35-year-old Ravi Shankar Thakur, who says taking a train is the only way he can afford to see his family in faraway Muzaffarpur in the eastern state of Bihar. He works in a Delhi factory and saves 1,000 rupees or about $16 to make this annual trip home.
I
can't afford a flight ticket. I can barely afford a train ticket. I wish I could travel by air-conditioned comfort with a seat to sit on. But tickets are so expensive. I will have to spend many months' salary to buy one.
The state-run rail network subsidizes tickets to keep train travel affordable. But many still aspire to fly. So they come to places like this. Those who can't afford a real flight can pay less than $1 to sit in this old Airbus A300 parked in the outskirts of Delhi. For the ticket price, customers get a lesson in the etiquette of flying and some sweets too.
This is amazing. It's nice for us to say that we have not just seen a plane but also sat inside one. And we know all about flying.
But it's not just price that's holding back passengers, it's also convenience. India's railway reaches every state and territory across this vast country. 8,000 stations in total. Compare that with just over 100 civilian airports and you can see that the geographical coverage of air travel is fairly limited if you don't want to get into a big town or city. The government plans to build 200 more airports in the next 20 years. But even those that do exist aren't always being utilized. More than $50 million has been spent on 8 airports that do not receive scheduled flights. Many more lie underused. Despite the rapid increase in passengers and air traffic, most airlines continue to lose money. They blame high operating costs, from airport charges to fuel bills. One airline that has made a profit recently was SpiceJet, an airline that was perilously close to collapse at the end of last year. It cancelled thousands of flights and was being denied fuel because of unpaid bills. Then its founder, who had sold the company, came back to the business, putting in $200 million and becoming the chief executive once more. I met him and started by asking how hard it was to run an Indian airline in 2015.
After I've taken over the airline again, we worked very hard to ensure that we get consumer confidence back. So we've tried to ensure that we are flying our flights on time again, we are not cancelling flights, and that we continue to sell our flights at reasonable fares. So a combination of all those, and I think the market likes comeback stories. And there's been a lot of excitement about SpiceJet's comeback in the market.
Aviation fuel has fallen by nearly 40% in the last year. But has this translated into cheaper fares for consumers?
On average, fares have fallen about 20% since last year. And that's typical. As fuel prices come off, fares will fall. And the growth that you see today, the 25-30% growth that you're seeing in the aviation market, is a consequence of the stimulation in fares.
This combination of a strong demand and lower fuel costs means that this is the golden opportunity for companies in the aviation sector here to reorganize the business. So what's your plan?
This is a time when we get some breathing space to reorganize the remaining, the rest of the costs and make sure that those come down at a more sustainable level. So that as oil prices, and if oil prices spike at some point, the airline can still be profitable. So our focus really is on bringing down all other costs, airport costs, the distribution costs, costs of lease and procurement of planes, the cost of engineering. So we are working on each and every single line item to ensure that costs come down to a sustainable level.
Like you said, the Indian aviation market has a huge potential, but it's also notorious for cutthroat competition and, airlines really struggling to make a profit here. So what is your turnaround plan? How do you plan to make SpiceJet a successful company?
I think while the market is a little notorious, as you said, it's also a very large market, and it's a very large potential market. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is that the airports which get developed are very few. And so carriers are left to fly between those few airports and fly multiple flights between the few airports. So if between Delhi and Mumbai you have 80 flights in a day, then of course it's going to be cutthroat. But as we develop airports outside of the main metros, the smaller towns, the tier 2, tier 3, that's where a significant part of the growth is going to come from.
As an airline company, what are you hoping to get from the government of India? How do you think the government should support the industry more?
It's really a mindset issue. In the past, aviation was thought to be something that only the rich did. And because it was something for the rich, it was taxed much as color televisions used to be taxed in the old days and computers used to be taxed. Aviation, of course, is now something that is very much for the middle classes of India. And we think that if we can bring down the cost of aviation, it will help airlines bring down fares and it will help stimulate the market. So we expect that the government will help in that process.
Ajay Singh, the chief executive of SpiceJet, speaking to me earlier. Now, India is one of the world's biggest arms importer. Nearly 70% of the weapons it buys are made abroad. Now, the government wants to make more defense equipment here in the country, not just for its own use, but to sell to others too. And this week, the industry has been going on the charm offensive with would-be buyers. Poonam Taneja reports from London.
This is a sight the English